Hey guys, it's Greg. I'm here today to talk to you all about the Lord of the Rings, the card game. This right here, it is a game that was released by Fantasy Flight Games. It is a living card game, and I'll talk to you about what that is and how it's distinct from, say, a trading card game. I'm really going to be drawing on a lot of the lessons that I learned from my previous video, which was an unboxing of Marvel Legendary. In that video, I felt like I went way too much in the way of kind of just looking at the game and talking about the rules and such, and I wasn't really looking at it more from like, well, why on earth would I want to play this game? Why would I like this game? So I'm hoping to convey more of that with this, talk about why it is that I like it and so forth. And we'll get into some of that. We will talk a little bit about how it's played, but I'm definitely going to try to keep things moving and not dwell too much. So come along, let's take a look at The Lord of the Rings, the card game. Okay, so here we have the first kind of grouping of the Lord of the Rings, the card game. It starts off with the core game, and then there are some adventure packs, expansion packs, if you will. And I guess one of the first things I should talk about here is this is a living card game, and what sets this apart from, say, a trading card game is though you have regularly released additional content, it's kind of more like an analog to DLC in a video game. You don't have to go out and buy packs. There's no randomization. Everything is as you see it. Everything is a set order and a set types of cards, and basically everything is predetermined. Is where I'm going with that. So inside the core set, you have a few scenarios to get you started and get you playing, and all you would need to play a game. And then the adventure packs are additional content that you can pull in. You can mix and match with what you already have. Each one is going to come with a scenario that you can play through, and everything is tied thematically. And we'll talk a little bit more about the themes as we go along. But first, I just want to, point out that the Lord of the Rings card game basically is a game where you assume the role of heroes and adventurers who have quests that you need to take on between, just if we want to put it in terms of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, this takes place between Bilbo's 111th birthday, which, if you're a fan of the films, it basically the opening birthday scene is what we're talking about there. And it goes in the books, it's 17 years between that event and when the hobbits leave the Shire. So these are all kind of things that are going on in the background um, during that time period. We start off, and one of the big things that we're doing, particularly over here, this is the first group of expansions that these ones tie thematically into the core set. Basically, what this is Thranduil, who is the Elven King, who I believe that he is Legolas's father, but I apologize to the Tolkien scholars out there. I'm not certain. But basically, there is in his realm a bad person has cropped up, a sorcerer, a necromancer, if you will. And if you saw the Hobbit movies, you know that that necromancer is going to turn out to be pretty bad down the road for all involved. And they need to go and they need to confront him. So there's various stages of that where we're trying to go and we're trying to travel toward Lothlorien and let Lady Galadriel know of the impending issues that are coming up. You're hunting for Gollum, trying to figure out why it is that the necromancer and the forces of evil might be looking for him. And there's scenarios and adventures along the way. But these are all expansions. So what about this? Well, the core set is going to get you experience is going to get you a taste of what is to come. There are, within the core set, there are 4 starter decks which are going to be based on different, they call them spheres of influence. Down here, the Denethor deck, well, I'm calling it the Denethor deck, but each of the starter decks comes with 3 heroes. So Denethor, I probably should have said Glorfindel, because Glorfindel, and Barivor. These are the lore decks. So if we want to talk about a theme for that, those are going to be, you know, people who are kind of playing more of a support role. They are people who are going to try and add boosts to the other players. And I would say the core set, it was designed so that you can play 1 to 2 people. If you want to play more than that, you'll need to get 2 sets. It's just based on you know, the number of cards, how they all interact, and so forth. And this game, I would say, is better with, I mean, my experience and my understanding is that it's better if you have more than 2 people. You know, this is a cooperative game. It's the players against the game itself, and there are all kinds of strict rules of that dictate how the game will function even while the players are doing their thing. And this is a very, very hard game. This is a game that is known for its challenge. Even when you are talking about the first scenarios, and you'll find that each one has a difficulty rating as you go along. Even the first ones are going to be a real challenge until you've played a few of them, a few matches, until you really learn the ins and outs. I personally, I've only played a few games of it, which is going to sound very silly when you look at how much I have. But basically, you know, I guess, you know, well, Greg, why do you have so much? Well, there are a couple of reasons why I have so much. What I have played, I've loved very much, but I also got really excited for it, watching other people share their love for it and getting excited for it that way. But I'm getting way off topic. I'm going a little bit crazy here. So we have lore. This is the Thalin deck. This is where you're going to find Gimli and Legolas. This is more of a combat-focused sphere of influence. Sorry about that. This is the tactics deck. It's going to be very combat-focused, so you're going to be encountering enemies along the way and so forth. So that's a good one to have if you are trying to make sure that your enemies don't overwhelm you. We have the leadership deck, which has Aragorn in it, the Aragorn deck, if you will. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and bring this one up close here so you can see a little bit better what the card's all about. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I really find that this game has some very spectacular artwork. You know, obviously, when we're looking at things that are painted, you know, there was no single artist who did all of this. There were a number of different artists involved. And I just feel that the art is spectacular. Some appeal more to me than others, and you know, your preferences might change, and you might be appealing. You might find others appealing that I don't, and so forth. But you know, just look at this high quality artwork and the design and presentation of this. So you do have your heroes, and lastly, before I talk about heroes and so forth, this is Eowyn. She is of the Spirit deck, so this is going to be more, they're focused on getting the quest done. They're really, you know, they might not be the most talented leaders, they might not be the most talented combatants, they might not know the most, but they are going to make sure that they get the job done. So that's kind of the theme for that. Each player is going to have 1 to 3 heroes. So these starter decks, I think I mentioned, do have 3 heroes in each of them, and then a number of other player cards. So this is Eleanor, and that's Dunhir. So these are very clearly marked hero down at the bottom. And then you're going to find a number of allies, a number of events, and a number of attachments that will help you along your way. And I think that one of the important things to talk about all of this is going to be talking about the turn order that will kind of give you more of an idea of cohesion in terms of, you know, what is this game really all about? Well, it's played in a number of rounds. We have the resource phase, which is thematically like the heroes going around. They know they have this quest that they need to complete, and this is going to be the stage where they are going out, they are gathering supplies, they are trying to get their allies together, and they're trying to just kind of set themselves up so that they'll be able to fulfill their quest. Then there's the planning phase, which is really more, you know, it's perhaps a little bit silly talking about the resource phase distinct from the planning phase because they're kind of linked, but the planning phase is more like now they're getting geared up. You know, they're actually putting on their gear, they're deciding, you know, they're doing more of a game plan. The quest phase is when they're actually trying to complete the quests. They're deciding, okay, well, you're going to go over here and you're going to look in this cave, or you know, we're going to go over this, you know, over these hills or whatever. That's kind of the theme there. The travel phase is when they actually go. The encounter phase is when you might come upon enemies, and we'll talk a little bit about that coming up as well. So you have the encounter phase, and then you might have to fight those enemies, and then you will refresh, where you get an opportunity to catch your breath, you get an opportunity to ready yourselves, and so forth. And that's the game thematically. There are a number of things that are also very important. Like, this game is really very involved with threat, and basically this is, you could think about this as, once you become powerful enough, then Sauron will take notice of you and will just obliterate you. As you're going along, you might find that you're encountering enemies. You know, there's a lot of danger out there in the wilds of Middle-earth. So this is an example of the enemies that you might face. You know, you might travel to interesting locations, and things might happen. We call them treachery. These are kind of like, I guess if we were to talk in terms of Magic the Gathering, these are kind of like an interrupt or a spell. You know, this is just something that is happening that, you know, might set them back, because the enemies, the locations, and the treachery cards, these are all challenges that are going to try to hinder you in your quest to to complete the quest. So you'll encounter those as you go along. And then there is the quest deck. You know, these are scenarios that are really the reason for the season. So I'll just read this text real quick. I'm not going to reveal too much, just in case you do want to get in and play this at some point. Just, you know, it's best to go in with kind of not knowing everything up front. But if I'm going to read this, this is 1A, Flies and Spiders. This is of the Passage Through Mirkwood quest line, which is, again, part of the core set. You are traveling through Mirkwood Forest, carrying an urgent message from King Thranduil to the Lady Galadriel of Lorien. As you move along the dark trail, the spiders gather around you. And then there's some specific setup scenarios that you need to follow that basically set you off and say, all right, that's your goal. These are the obstacles you need to overcome. Let's do this. And again, the game controls all the bad stuff that will happen. There is some random chance involved, but again, I think I said it already, but just in case I didn't, and I'm sure I'll say it again, this game is, you know, it's very difficult, and fate is basically laughing at you all along the way. So then again, this is the core set. Thematically, we go into the these are the Mirkwood cycle, I believe is called. So these are all just adventure packs. Generally, the way the game was released is you have the core set, 6 adventure packs, and then we'll have expansions, which are kind of larger, you know, not quite as big as the core set, not quite as small as an adventure set, but somewhere in between. You get a lot more content. They introduce new concepts, new rules, very much new themes and new locations when you have those expansions. And then from there, there's also a number of adventure packs. I'm going to keep calling those expansions as well. But really, you know, deluxe expansion versus expansion, I guess, is the way we'll talk about things like that. I got way off track talking about things, but I just wanted to, you know, kind of look a little bit more at some of the cards here, because I do think that they are stunning. And one of the things that I really like about this game as well is there is a lot of lore in it. It's not just things that happen in the movies. We're not just talking about, you know, we did see Theodred in the movies. We did see Aragorn. Glóin was in The Hobbit. But there's a lot of other stuff, you know, Guard of the Citadel, which, you know, I'm gonna go through this a little bit quicker, just to keep moving on. Son of Arnor. So Arnor is an you know, a more ancient kingdom. You know, it's another way of talking about where the Dúnedain come from, which Aragorn is one of them. A silver-lowed archer. So there's a ton of references to things that you would really only get if you were reading the books. You know, and a lot of it is beyond just the Lord of the Rings. A lot of it is beyond The Hobbit. Even a lot of it is going to be pulled from the Silmarillion, which was another fantastic book that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, and it's more of the story of Middle-earth beyond just the happenings in the War for the One Ring. So that's that. Let's move on to the next cycle. Okay, and next we have Khazad-dûm and the Dwarrowed Elf cycle. So thematically, what are we talking about here? Well, after the events of The Hobbit, Balin decided that he was going to take a company of dwarves and go and reclaim Khazad-dûm. He wanted to reclaim Moria. And basically, everything was going good. Yeah, we're finding all kinds of treasures here. We're making a lot of progress. You know, life is good. We're starting to really lay down some real good some roots, and we're really starting to get some real progress. And then everything stops. So what this here is kind of, you know, adventures of, well, your adventurers who take it upon themselves to go and find out what is happening in Moria, what is happening to Balin's company. And basically it takes place in the mines of Moria, as you may remember from well, a various number of things. So, you know, trying to go in, basically it follows a pretty good logical progression. You know, starting at the Red Horn Gate, we're trying to get in there, trying to go through the mountains. There's Road to Rivendell, in which I believe, and I might be off on this, but I believe that is a messenger is being sent to Elrond in Rivendell, trying to, you know, say, hey, something's not right. We really could use your help, and it would behoove you as well to make sure that, bad things stop happening here. Then we see the Watcher in the Water, which, I always felt like that was a very inconsequential event that happened in the movies and even in the book. But talking with people since then and seeing what other lore is out there, that was actually a pretty significant thing, and it really showed how you know how OP Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, the Fellowship in general, how OP they are and were, that they were able to do all of these things and overcome such incredible foes. And then, we progress through different areas of Mordor, excuse me, not Mordor, of Moria, go through the Long Dark, these are all just cavernous expanses which were, abandoned, and we find out later that they were reclaimed by orcs. Then you get to the Foundations of Stone, and finally, and this is the one that I am very excited to check out. This is Shadow and Flame, which, yeah, that's a Balrog. Well, it doesn't do much good for me to show you like that. I'm gonna just open this up real quick. There we go. There's the Balrog. Yep. Balrog's pretty awesome. So I'm really excited. Eventually I will get in and play and get up to there and find out what all of that has going on. Obviously I'm not going to be fighting the Balrog, or at least expecting that I will be defeating him on account of, well, we saw Gandalf do that, and this is not involving Gandalf, except for maybe Gandalf will pop in and out of my adventures based on the cards that I have. And actually, this is a good point to mention as well. One of the fairly important tenets of the game and the way that the living card game release schedule matters. You basically will want to play things in the order that they were released, and each time you can add more things into your skill set, and each time you're able to add more cards and such. And why that's important is the game. Well, basically the game was designed as it goes along, and basically if you try to take, for example, a card from the Morgul Vale, which came out after these, and put a bunch of these cards in your decks to go and do these quests are going to be much easier by comparison. And again, so much of this game is about that challenge and trying to make sure that you're living up to the expectations and so forth, which actually, when I stop and I think about it, this is actually a very wonderful way to combat power creep, which is it's one of those things that you face in video games, you face in other card games, particularly trading card games, where each time something new comes out, it basically renders everything before it obsolete. When you are in an MMO and you've reached the level cap and you're playing and you're grinding and you've got all the great equipment, all of a sudden, once that level cap goes up, from 40 to 50 or what have you, the level 50 gear is going to outclass the level 40 gear that you spent so much time on, and it's not even going to be close. It's just, But anyways, it's great, because if you are just going along, ignoring this stuff and playing it in the order that it was released, then you're going to be able to see, you're going to be drawing from that pool beforehand and not looking ahead to things that'll just render the challenge obsolete. But anyways, so there's the Dwaro Elf cycle. Again, really, really cool thematically, in my opinion. And then we move on to the Eras of Numenor. As you can see, I don't have as much of this cycle. I do, of course, have the deluxe expansion, the Eras of Numenor, and one of the adventure packs. And what this is all about is, if you've seen the films, you know, I'm going to keep referencing that. I haven't actually read through the full book. I'm professing myself to be a big fan of the Lord of the Rings, but I haven't read all of the Lord of the Rings. I had a hard time getting through it, but that's for another day. This is what's going on in Gondor, while, you know, all the other stuff is going on, and this is kind of what builds into Denethor being so like, we got no aid, we shan't turn over the weapon of the enemy, or we won't risk it. Basically just shutting himself off and saying, you know, we have been the front lines, we have been the ones who have been pulling our weight, and everyone else has benefited from it, so we're not going to do another thing for you. You know, you need to start doing for me, that sort of thing. And again, this is all of what's going on there, which I think is something that, I mean, I'm pretty excited to explore that someday down the road, and learn all of that, and kind of get more context for, you know, where were you, King of Gondor, when I was here protecting your people while our people were dying, that sort of thing. I'm really excited to try that out and see what they have there. Okay, next up on our journey here, we have the Voice of Isengard expansion, and these are adventure packs related to the making of the Rings of Power. You know, not so much that, but, you know, just a lot of the lore going on. This one, Voice of Isengard, is kind of focused on, you know, there are enemies kind of attacking Isengard from all over. You know, wild men, you know, just people who are trying to, I mean, trying to survive, but they're trying to gain power and so forth, and as well. So this is Saruman trying to protect his lands and so forth. Again, this is the Ringmaker cycle, so, you know, you have things like Celebrimbor's Secret, which, you know, to me, that's another one of those really awesome areas of the lore, which, you know, I think that it bears looking into more. But also, I mean, look at this amazing Galadriel artwork. I'm going to have to open this up again for you. Look at that. I mean, I'm not really a scholar of fine art, but I think that is something that, you know, there we go, pull it out a little bit and focus a little better. I just think that is incredible artwork. Just absolutely. And one of the themes, again, that you find in this game is that things are just stunning. They're magical, even, in terms of the quality of the work. And you can really tell that between the people who created the game and make the game and the people who contributed to it from a creative perspective beyond that, you know, such as creating the art, they really, this is very much an effort of passion and love, that, you know, you don't create paintings like this without having some attachment or some reason to really want to. You know, this is, I believe that this was done by an artist named Magali, and I apologize. You're not going to watch this, but, you know, if you were to stumble on it, I apologize if I've just butchered your name. But, you know, this is really, really wonderful artwork, and there's stuff like this popping up all throughout, and I wanted to highlight it because it is so absolutely fantastic. Okay, so ultimately this quest leads us to trying to capture the Antlered Crown, which is a kind of a mythical artifact that will help them on their way to protecting the free peoples of Middle Earth. And then there's the Lost Realm. I don't really know what this one is all about. I just kind of picked it up because I went on a crazy buying spree. Um, as you can see, I don't have everything. You know, I have an awful lot, but I don't have everything. Um, for those keeping track at home, I had the Morgul Veil out of the Heirs of Numenor cycle. I'm missing the Dunlin Trap for the Ringmaker, and I don't have any of the expansions for the Lost Realm. But you know what? I still love it, and I'm happy to have it. Even though this is probably where there's been more content out there since this, but this is probably where I'm going to stop. Time is a resource that needs to be thought about just as much as money or other tangible resources. And if I play through all of these and end up beating all of these scenarios, then that will be a feat in and of itself. But we're not done there. Greg, you have a problem. No, guys, I had a problem. I haven't bought any of this stuff for years. Just because I have a resurgence in interest in it as part of, wanting to make this video and having that unboxing itch that I talked about before, doesn't mean, no, I had a problem. This is all just stuff I have. But anyways, you might also say, beyond saying, Greg, you have a problem, you might also say, I like the idea of playing the adventures as fringe characters and not really tied to the events of the books and movies, but, it'd be really nice to actually play those adventures too. Well, you're in luck. They also came out with what we call saga expansions. These are basically all going to be like the deluxe expansions, only they're not tied in with adventure pack cycles. So we have The Hobbit, Overhill and Underhill. This is going to be like the first part of their journey, walking away from the Shire and getting in with the elves and so forth. And then we move on to The Hobbit, On the Doorstep. So these are the two ones that they released to kind of go over the events of The Hobbit. This is more focused on, being at the Lonely Mountain, encountering Smaug, etc. So that's that. And then The Lord of the Rings. Okay, well, this one's a bit unwieldy. The Hobbit is a little tiny book. The Lord of the Rings is a big honkin' volume, and as such, it makes sense that there would be more for the Lord of the Rings than there is for the Hobbit. So we have the Black Riders, and then we have The Road Darkens. So this one, it brings us back to Moria, but this again is going to be the Fellowship doing everything. Treason of Sauron. This is where he's broken bad. He turns on Gandalf, and he has aligned himself with Sauron. The Land of Shadow. This is where Gollum is leading Frodo and Sam, trying to trick them and get the ring back for himself, that sort of thing. Flame of the West is going to be like the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Like here you can see the Witch King riding on his fell beast. And then this, my friends, is the last saga expansion. This is the Mountain of Fire, which is going to be focused on Mordor and destroying the ring, facing Sauron, and so forth. So, yeah, a lot of content. A lot of stuff to buy if that is your interest. I kind of got more into doing the collecting, I suppose. Even though this is not a collectible card game, I still thought, hey, why not? There's a lot of fun stuff out there. And if that wasn't enough, they also came out with some scenarios that were kind of released at Gen Con. They are standalone scenarios that, you know, just add additional stuff if you are interested in checking that out. So these ones don't come with the heroes. You know, all of the other adventure packs that you had, those all came with heroes. So this is probably this is the one that I am most excited about and most interested in. This is the attack on Dol Guldur. This is when, you know, you saw it in the films. You know, Gandalf was getting his backside handed to him at the hands of the necromancer who revealed himself to be Sauron, and it took Elrond, it took Saruman, it took Galadriel, it took I want to say there was someone else, but I'm not sure. But basically, the real heavy hitters, the real power players of Middle-earth, all of them had to go and assail the Necromancer in order to get Gandalf back and uncover the plot and just basically say, yeah, we're not having this anymore. So, you know, a bunch of really cool standalone things like the Battle of Lake Town, which is another really cool thing thematically. You know, facing off against Smaug and using that black arrow to take him down. I can't help but think about the old cartoon where a sparrow goes and tells Bard, tweet, 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 tweet. Oh, yes, look, a soft spot on his breast. You know, I love that stuff. And now I have an opportunity to fulfill my childhood fantasy of playing through that and being a part of those adventures. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed the video. I hope that you learned something and perhaps you'll give a shot at the Lord of the Rings, the card game. It's still very much available. You can buy it on Amazon. You can go directly to the Fantasy Flight website and buy it there. Or maybe you'll know someone who has some of these cards and you'll be able to play with them and experience it for yourself. I love the game from a concept, from getting in and playing. I just think the whole thing is really, really great, and I hope that you will enjoy it as well. Let me know what you think. Is this a game that you're going to play? Let me know what you'd like to see from me in the future. I am going to plan on doing an unboxing for this game. I was recently able to get my hands on a expansion that I did not have and was searching for a long time, so I'm very excited about that. So I want to show you guys that too, so stay tuned for that in a future video, and I will talk to you guys all soon. Bye.